It's the most wonderful time of the year. Yes, it's Winterfest season, and we're here to talk all about it. I'm Ryan Sir, along with my co host Don Helbig and a couple of special guests. And this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics is a podcast for Kings Island fans by Kings Island fans because that's who we are and that's who we care about.
All right, so special episode today. We actually have not one but two guests. They're both returners, but I want to present to you Brad from KI Central. So Brad is better known as the guy that took my job when I got laid off from KI Central. Along with him is the man that proves that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, Chris Hughes. How you guys doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we wanted to get your thoughts on Winterfest. Kings Island just opened this past weekend. So, what were your initial thoughts on this year's event? And Brad, we'll start with you.
I thought the park looked great. I do like the new decorations on Snowflake Lake of the two snowflakes out there. I thought those looked really, really nice and added a little extra to the fountain rink. And I really didn't notice the extra lights that was talked about. I don't know if you guys did or not. I didn't really notice it. Maybe I was just oblivious. I'm not sure. But I didn't really notice extra lights. I thought the park looked great. I do miss some of the performers that got dropped this year, but I'm sure we'll talk about that more here in a minute.
Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, kind of with what Brad said. I Street looked great with the new snowflakes. One of the biggest things that I noticed, unfortunately, walking towards Mystic Timbers after rope drop was the huge Nightwalker sign on the show place. So that was kind of disappointing. But I didn't really notice any additional lights compared to previous years. But the park did look good.
All right, Ryan, what about you?
I can't even remember if you specifically asked about lights or not, but that was what's been answered. I thought the park looked amazing. I think the park looked better than it ever has for Winterfest. Do I believe there's additional lights? Yes, I do. Do I believe there's 40% more? Probably not. But yeah, the park looked great, and I thought it was a great event still.
All right. What about live shows? Did you get a chance to take any of those in? What were your favorites? And Ryan, we'll start with you this time.
My favorite live show is and will probably always be Tinker's Toy Factory. I think that is such a gem, and I think that if Winterfest ever didn't have it, it would be not the same event. I think it's fun, it's entertaining, it's heartfelt, brings a little tear to your eye, and Kings Island's performers are just some of the best, and it's so awesome to have them in such a show that's just so neat.
Brad?
I got to see the Snoopy show over by the little coaster. What's that show? I can't remember the name of that show.
To Christmas, I think.
Something like that, yeah. And I got to see sounds of the songs of the Nativity, which I thought was a really good show. Those guys can really sing and belt out, and I thought that location there was very good for that. It kind of put that a little more center stage per se, of compared to where it was before in the old Peanuts pavilion. And so I thought that was really good. I really didn't get a chance to see any other shows because I was too busy taking photos and videos and such for KI Central on my visit. But I did enjoy both of those.
All right. Well, great photos, by the way, Brad. I had a chance to take a look at them. Just thought you got some
Thank you.
Really, really great shots. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, I got to see two shows. I did see Tinker's at 6:30, and it was a completely packed house, which was awesome. Anytime that the house is packed, it's awesome. Just the energy right there is great. But as Ryan said, the performers are stellar. But then I also went to go see What the Dickens, and I was pulled up on stage to play Scrooge, so that was fun.
Natural fit.
Natural fit. But they did a great job there, and that's always a great show to watch. Of course, they did a little their joke about Six Flags that they've done in the past, which we weren't sure if they were going to do.
It's a little different now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
All right, what about some of the Christmas activities that they have? They have, the crafting. If you brought your son there, Brad, or you have the cookie decorating, pictures with Santa. Did any of you have a chance to do any of those?
I did not. It was just me and my wife this past weekend to get photos and such for KIC, so I didn't take any of the kids. I think they're hoping we go this weekend. But I did not get to any of the crafts, or I did step in and look at the cookies and see what was going on there, and it looked like all those families were having a good time with it. There's still lots of good shopping, lots of good things around the park. We did have the new Adventure Port ornaments, so I don't know if anyone saw those that we had posted or saw them in the shops, but that's a cool little new ornament that I got this year. I'm sure there was more that was there that I missed, but I thought that was pretty cool. I haven't bought mine yet, but it's on my list now.
All right, Chris?
I actually didn't do any of the special activities. I just went to the shows, ate, walked around the park, rode Mystic Timbers, and that's pretty much it.
And Ryan, you?
So I actually I would say the shopping's an activity, and we did a lot of shopping. A lot of the merchandise is really cool this year. Specifically, they've got this Winterfest hoodie that everyone seems to be kind of gushing over that I might actually kind of cave and purchase. But let me ask a question here. So let's so Brad, I think you were the previous one to answer. Let's start with you. So holiday, like Winterfest special food items, was there anything that stuck out to you? Did you get to try anything?
I did the mac and cheese bar.
Excellent choice.
That was the only thing I ate that night. Didn't have a chance to get a second meal that evening, but that was really good.
What about you, Chris?
I did the turkey at Coney Barbecue for my first meal. That was always good. I'm always hoping, though, that they add either stuffing or gravy to it. But it was good. And then...
Hold on. You got turkey with no gravy?
Yeah, they don't do gravy.
This isn't Holiday World,
Right.
Don. They don't just have gravy boats floating around on the roller coasters.
All right.
But then for my second meal, I did do the mac and cheese bar. Of course, I did it. It was at the end of the night by the time I did it. So I wasn't too impressed with it compared to previous years, but it wasn't bad overall.
Yeah, I mean, I did the turkey the first night, and I feel like the experiences vary. And this is not a referendum on Coney Barbecue or anything like that, because anytime you're served food in that fashion, some of it's going to be better than others. Mine was incredible. Mine was very moist, and it definitely tasted like home cooked turkey from Thanksgiving. And then I had the corn souffle.
Yes.
Which the corn bread was really good. The corn itself was a little tough, and I'm not sure if it's supposed to be that way or not, because that's the only time I've ever eaten corn souffle, to be honest with you. But I had other friends that ate the turkey, and they thought it was dry. But again, like everything's going to be hit or miss when it comes to the way that food is served.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big part of the event, all the different foods that you can try. And that. So let's talk about the parade. Obviously, the highlight for a lot of guests is the Winterfest Wonderland Parade. Were there any floats or displays that caught your attention this year? Maybe a little bit of a change in the route? Any of those kind of things? We'll start with you, Brad.
Oh boy, the route. I had parked over in front of Mrs. Claus's kitchen for the cookies area, so I could get video. Had done any good research, realizing the parade route had changed. So if you noticed in the KIC video that I put of Winterfest, there's really not much in the way of the parade, because I didn't realize that was the end of the parade, and all the characters get off there at the end of that set, and then they just kind of take the floats away. So I was a little disappointed in that. I wish they would at least have the character stay on as it's leaving, so people could get some more shots and videos and that sort of thing instead of emptying the floats before they take off. I realize I'm sure it has something to do with the characters having to be somewhere or something. I get it, but I was a little disappointed because I didn't do my own research, so I was just as much upset at myself as I was experiencing it. But if you are over there and you're at the end of the parade path, you really don't get to see a parade, and you've waited the longest.
All right, Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I ended up checking out in Coney, and I'm not going to say it's the best place to watch, but Coney is a really good place to watch the show, or the parade per se. But there weren't any floats that necessarily stood out other than like the performers. You have the Ice Prince and Princess that they're kind of stationary, but then you have Tinker and another elf on the other float that are a little bit more wild, I guess you could say. But they are all doing a great job. Of course, the songs are still the same as previous years, but the interaction's still very good. The one thing that kind of threw me was the spacing and the lack of merriment characters at the beginning. But the spacing, for sure, you'd have the guides for the floats walking backwards, and then they'd end up in the performers, and so you could tell that it wasn't necessarily how it was supposed to be. But overall, the parade was still very good.
All right, Ryan, your thoughts.
So
Go ahead.
you and I discussed on a different tower topics how with the different budgeting for Winterfest, apparent budgeting, that the parade may not look very full. I'm happy to say, and I did post this on KI Central, that I feel like it was. I don't think that the parade suffered. A lot of the concerns that Chris had mentioned, as far as the spacing of the floats and stuff, I think that was more like first weekend kind of things, but I thought the parade was really high energy. Like I really liked it. I was most concerned about the parade going into Winterfest, and I thought it was just fantastic. We'll get into the Winterfest Wonder Wand and how that interacts with the parade later, but that certainly added kind of another element to the parade. But let me ask you guys this, since you guys seem to be riding the rides a lot more during Winterfest. What was it like riding like Mystic or whatever ride you want to talk about? We'll start with Brad.
Go with Chris, because I don't remember if I rode anything.
All
I don't
right,
think
well,
I rode anything when I was there.
Did you ride the train?
No, I didn't even go ride the train.
Wow, I haven't.
I don't
either.
think I got on one ride that whole night.
Well, Chris, you mentioned that you rode Mystic. So what are your feelings on that during Winterfest?
Yeah, so I went to Mystic pretty much right as the park opened at 5 o'clock. You get into the gates a little earlier so you can stroll through I Street. Got to Mystic, and I was greeted with a line. They weren't open. They didn't open the line until about 5:30. They had just started testing at 5 o'clock, so that was kind of disappointing. Because our group, we had kind of decided, we'll go ride Mystic, and then we'll go grab food so we can have additional mealtime later. But by the time I got on, the ride was great. I mean, Mystic Timbers is always a fun ride. But feeling that cold wind across your face as you're going up and down throughout the course is just a lot of fun. But yeah, that's really the only thing I rode. So don't have much in the way of rides as of this year.
All right, I want to circle back to Brad. You said you didn't ride any rides. Do you think part of that is that, the Winterfest experience, if you're there on a Friday night, you got 5 hours. If you're on a Saturday, you got 6. That if you're going to watch a show or two, wait in line, find a spot for the parade, eat something. There's really not a lot of time to do that. Is that maybe why you didn't get to do any rides?
That was part of it. Part of it was also getting content for KI Central to put out there. But for me, Winterfest isn't as much about the rides as it is the experience of being in the park. At least that's my take on it. If I get to ride a ride or two while I'm there, great. But for me, I want to experience the Winterfest aspect because you don't get that any other time of the year. So you got a select number of days that you can make it over, from Indy with a 2-hour drive one way to get over there and experience Winterfest. And there is a lot to do. Even with some of the cutbacks we have this year, there's still a lot to be packed in 5 hours at a park and 6 hours on a Saturday. So to me, the shows and just the atmosphere of the park makes it for me more than the rides.
Okay, that's fair enough there. We're going to start with Ryan on this one. In your opinion, how well did Kings Island transform into a magical haven for winter entertainment for this event this year? And if you could pick one thing you were most impressed with, what was it?
So, we had a lot of discussion, and there's been a lot of negativity this year about, rides closing early, the VIP lounge, all that stuff. But one thing I will say is when you walked into Winterfest, you didn't feel like you got shorted. Look, the park looked amazing. Um, it had the spirit of the season. I thought that was very, very good. The thing that impressed me the most, like if I had to say something that's changed that impressed me the most, like Snowflake Lake with the big snowflakes on them, part of the 2 million extra lights, I guess. Those were really, really good looking. I really enjoyed them. Now, one critique I do have, I understand why they do this, but when they do the tree lighting and they light up International Street, I don't know why that stuff doesn't light up with it. But I mean, I guess I do know. The reason is because people want their photos and stuff when they have that early ice skating session. But I really like that as far as like something that's new that you can see and it's very prominent and it could be iconic. That's the thing that impressed me the most.
All right, Chris, go ahead.
I would have to say the shows. I mean, even though I only saw 2, I caught Sounds of the Nativity walking to What the Dickens. But seeing the caliber of the shows stay as what they have been in the past really showed that, Winterfest is still here and it's still doing good.
All right.
Cool. Yeah, so let me ask you a question here. So we talked about the food a little bit. Did anybody get to try any of the treats, like the sweet stuff, or at least check out the sweet spot and see what they had made?
I did look at the sweet shop. I didn't buy anything. And you have the typical grab your candy wall or the fudge. But in the cases, I did see that they had like a red velvet cake mousse, another mousse, and a few other things I didn't really pay much attention to. But it actually looked really well stocked.
Yeah. What about you, Brad? Did you get to stop by?
I did not go into Sweet Spot, and usually that's a place I try to hit every time, and usually get my sweet tooth ends up turning me into buying something while I'm in there. But I did not go in this time.
Yeah, one thing that they have this year, and I haven't tried it yet, is they've got a cookie cake. Like, they had like the birthday cakes and that kind of side glass thing. They had a cookie cake that was like a wreath. So it had green icing all around it and stuff. That looked really good. And then they had a lot of the same stuff, but it kind of had a Christmas twist on it. So they had the pretzels with the white chocolate and the red and green sprinkles on it. But so let's give a shout out to Bolin, who's the head pastry chef. She's a doll. Make sure you say hi to her if you see her in the Sweet Spot. But she comes up with a lot of the ideas for the stuff in the Sweet Spot as far as creativity and things that are offered for the seasons and so on. So very, very good job for her.
Yeah, very talented individual, and definitely check out the Sweet Spot when you're visiting Kings Island for Winterfest. All right, we're on the subject of food here. The International Restaurant, they have the Winterfest buffet, kind of a sporadic operating calendar for that. So, Brad, make sure you check out the website before you go so you know when it's open.
Thank you for that.
Is that something that, did you maybe try it this weekend, or is it something that you would plan to do during Winterfest? Start with you, Chris.
So I did not do it this weekend. But one of the main things that I saw with Kings Island pass holders on our Facebook page was the fact that the price is raised and they're not including dessert or there's something else that they weren't including.
There's no season
so-
pass discount is probably the other thing
Yeah.
I'm thinking of.
Probably, yeah. But in total, like a buffet for one person, and if you were to add a dessert, it would be like $44 per person. So that kind of was a shock to me. I don't know if I actually would do it, especially because they don't really advertise what's on the menu. And I know last year they had talked about what was on the menu, and half the stuff I would never eat. So for me personally, I'm good.
Brad?
Oh, picky Chris there. I probably would not go unless there was a group of us that decided to do it. Chris and I hang out quite a bit at the park, and some of our other friends, and if we all decided to do it one night, we would do it. But for me, just to go to the park by myself, or even take my own family, I'm probably not going to do that, especially with the additional cost when you already have a meal plan. So that really kind of detours if you got a meal plan. Okay, am I going to spend another $40 some to take a meal that I already have paid for? Now, granted, it's a totally different meal and more of a sit down and more elegant meal. At the same time, to me, it's not worth it.
Ryan, what about you?
So I've done the international buffet, the international restaurant buffet, pretty much every opportunity I've had. So they used to do it for Carnival, and they did it for the 50th, and they obviously have done it for Winterfest, and I've done it at every opportunity. But the price raising is fine. Everything's getting more expensive, and food is definitely a victim of this. I can forgive that, but the whole desserts now $7.99 thing, that's a cash grab. Based on that alone, I'm not terribly tempted by it. I'm kind of like with Brad, where if I was there with the girlfriend and some friends and they wanted to do it, like I wouldn't object to it, but I'm not going to try to sell anybody on it, because I feel like there's a point where it's kind of like, well, we're going to raise the price by, I mean, if you assume a dessert with it, which the dessert to me is not a big loss. But I'm speaking from the average person, where if it's $4 more, $5 more, and then a dessert's like $6.99 or $7.99, and as Chris mentioned, they haven't listed the menu anywhere. That's not been communicated out. The temptation just isn't there. All right.
Yeah, I think I'd want to see the menu before I committed to, reserving a spot up there. But you do have to say, though, the view of International Street, it's spectacular from up there.
It's definitely a $40 view of International Street.
Probably what you're paying for right there.
Yeah, and to me, it's like, I'm not against that. Like, I love the International Restaurant. It's just, when you start to be nickel and dimed and stuff like that, I take that a little personally. And I think we're all kind of on the same page, where the park to us isn't just a business. It's not not just a place. It's like an entity. And it's kind of like, we've been so loyal to you, and then like, oh, $6.99 for dessert on a buffet that you raise the price for. Like I said, like, I wouldn't be against it, but I'm not going to try to sell my group of friends on it. But
yeah, situation has to be right to do it.
exactly. Cool. Hey, let's wrap up this part one of this. We're actually gonna do two parts. If you're listening to this and it's the first day, then we're gonna drop this during our normal schedule for Tower Topics, and we're gonna have Brad and Chris on to talk about some more stuff. So stick around. I'm Ryan Serlong with Don Helbig, along with Brad Purdue and Chris Hughes, and this is Tower Topics.